All the men and women in the military.
Most definitely. We go back to Mike Woods, who has a special guest.
All right, I got two special guests out here. We have Gordon Loebl as well as Michael Leavitt here with the Coast Guard. Thank you very much for coming out here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Now what we have, the Coast Guard's going to be passing by here in a little bit, and want to get some perspective from your point of view. Now you're based here in New York, in Staten Island, right?
That's correct. I'm the captain of the port for the state of New York, New Jersey, and Sector New York is a large field command. We have 700 active duty, 300 reservists, and about 2,000 auxiliaries. Those are our volunteers.
So this is a big time thing going on right now, and you've been extremely active with the storm that came through, and you actually live in Staten Island. Your family's there.
Right. We've actually been very busy for the last couple of weeks, but this is a great way to come out and say thank you to the veterans who gave us the rights, our freedoms, everything. Just the right thing to do, to come out and honor them.
That's right. Now, Michael Leavitt, now you're with the Coast Guard, but you represent more nationally. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I work directly with the Commandant, and I get a great honor and privilege to work with all the fine Coast Guard men and women and get a chance to see all the support we get from the families of the United States Coast Guard.
Because we have a lot of folks that are out there working hard right now. I mean, especially what's happened as of late here with Sandy coming through. A lot of folks are busy. We probably would have more participants from the Coast Guard if it weren't for the storm, right?
Oh, we sure would. And just to let you know, Sector New York's up here. We have a lot of Coast Guard men and women up here right now giving a lending hand up here, helping our shipmates out and their families. And we have family support units out here doing the same thing for the folks out there. In addition to that, we have them out there in our communities, and they're still working hard out there doing the things they got to do to take care of the Port of New York and all the surrounding communities out there.
What other sorts of things does the Coast Guard really handle throughout the year that a lot of folks might not be aware of?
Well, a lot of things you can always see. You see the Coast Guard, you probably relate like search and rescue, the HMS Bounty that everybody saw off of Cape Hatteras out there. We had our air crews go out there and rescue those folks pretty much in a hurricane out there with the 20-foot seas and the 60-knot gust of wind out there, and you all saw that nationally. And then but a lot of times you don't see the two Coast Guard cutters that were out there that were looking for some of the folks, and then the support piece that's behind all of that to make that happen. We do that on a daily basis.
It is. It's on a daily basis. It has nothing to do with what's going on abroad. We're, protecting ourselves locally here. So we have a lot of participants that are coming through here. Now, who are some of the folks that are going to be coming through with the Coast Guard?
Oh, you're going to see the honor guard, the drill team that I think they're performing over there right now.
Okay.
Okay, and also what you're going to see from Sector New York, because we have so many people who have been impacted by the storm and are so busy trying to get everything back together again. We have one participant, one representative who's going to represent the whole sector.
Wow.
Her name is Ensign Nicole Barriga. She's from Queens, local girl. And she graduated from the Merchant Marine Academy.
Okay.
And she was on watch the night the hurricane hit.
Wow, so from that point forward, I'm sure she's been extremely busy, and so she's the only one that was able to make it.
We selected her as a representative. She was very special events that occurred that night. We were receiving calls from over 100 people, probably about 170 people that were stranded in Coney Island, Breezy Point, Staten Island, those areas that were heavily affected by the storm. And she was part of the team that coordinated helicopters that were on scene, first light, so they could rescue people. They wound up saving 3 lives in Staten Island.
Right.
But there was potentially could have been a lot.
Could have been a lot worse. And again, you're being from Staten Island, you probably knew a lot of the families that were affected by the storm.
Certainly, there were plenty of families, plenty of our own Coast Guard families that were affected, and we're working very hard to get their lives back together.
Get them back in order. Now, Michael, so tell me a little bit more about the Coast Guard in terms of what goes on from this point forward, and what folks need to know about the Coast Guard and how they can perhaps help.
Well, what they know about the Coast Guard is, the Coast Guard, first we reflect society. We're located in almost every single town coastal. We're nationally connected. We're all across the world. And we perform 11 separate missions. Search and rescue being one of those law enforcement you see out here, port security. You probably saw last year ice breaking.
Sure.
Some of the great things I get an opportunity to do is see these fine men and women walking right by us in the honor guard.
Well, let's talk about that, like the honor guard. Who is this? Go ahead, say that one more time.
Well, the honor guard is a great reflection of some of our Coast Guard out here. And what they do is they perform in the White House, high-level functions, and they're so engaged. They carry on our customs, our heritage, our traditions, and they work with all our other services too when they do that. So I'm so proud of them. And often we're very small, And so, in very small in numbers, but we're always there. We're always there in our support and doing the things we got to do.
And I think a lot of folks get very excited when they see the Coast Guard, the color guide go by, and it's like it's a tradition that is seen around many of the holidays and throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And a lot of folks, it's important to also know that we're a member of the armed forces, and that's where we fall into this right here. So that's one of our missions too. But like I say, it's a great honor right here, and just look how sharp they look.
They really do. That's pretty amazing. I mean, I know a lot of folks, it gives you a chill when you see them go by, right?
It sure does. And this is our recruit over at Recruit Training, our Cape May, where we start off as Coast Guardsmen, where they make that transition from civilian life to military life. When they learn about our Coast Guard ethos, our Coast Guard core values, we make that transition. They learn about 222 years of Coast Guard history, traditions, heritage.
What's that like for folks to go from the civilian to the Coast Guard? What's that transformation like? And what do you see in these young men and women who are going through that transformation process?
I'll tell you, it's really something else when you go in there, when they first get off the bus, when that first company commander gets on board, their eyes are so big. They don't know what hit them, but when they graduate, that 8-week process, when they leave, they are proud, they're very confident, and they're ready to take on the challenges in the Coast Guard. That's what I see. I see very happy young men and women coming out of there, ready to give back to the Coast Guard.
And they're providing such a service, and you can see as they walk by what pride they do have, and they're talented too, with everything that goes on.
That's our Coast Guard band, sir. Our Coast Guard band does, they do a lot of the same thing. What I remember about them is, I see them all the time too, and they carry on our traditions, our customs, and our ceremonies too. And you heard them today probably at the parade there at the park there.
Right, at the beginning.
At the very beginning. And you'll see them doing that with our other services. And I just proud. They sing our service songs out there. They represent us in White House functions. They sang at the 2010 Christmas lighting show when it was so cold I thought my shoes were going to crack.
But we made it.
And they did such a great job out there. And then they even been their first military service that actually, first military band that actually performed in Leningrad in Russia. I didn't know that till we did a little history check on that. But they're great, and I even wrote a letter to them how proud I am, all of them, because they're all part of what we do.
That's absolutely fantastic, and we're all very proud of you. Thank you for coming out here and sharing some of your stories with the U.S. Coast Guard, and happy Veterans Day to you all, and we appreciate all that you do, and enjoy the parade, and this is really quite a treat for me because a lot of this I haven't seen before. But we have more special guests, and we're going to go to my colleague Elise Zwick, and she's got some more.